Hello and welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the show where we watch, discuss, and review every horror movie on Netflix. I'm Steven. As always, I'm here with one of my faithful co-hosts, Chris.
Hello again.
Patrick is taking the night off, but we are joined by a very special returning guest that we haven't heard from in quite some time, Allison with an I. Welcome.
Thank you, friends. It's so nice to be back. Thanks for having me.
It's been a while. What do you remember what episodes we had you on in the past?
It was pre-COVID. I'm sure of that because you guys transitioned to doing all this remote.
Did you watch Corbin Nash with us?
Yep.
All right.
I sure did.
Did you watch Boys in the Trees with us?
Yeah, I think those are the only two I did.
Really? I thought there was more.
I feel like we did at least one episode with you where we talked about real estate, which is a pretty common theme on the show. But
we definitely did. Yeah. We did.
So we're back at it. This week we're here with you to review the 2018 Netflix original film, The Open House. Before we get into it, though, I know that we'd like to do a little catch up. I know that at least the three of us have shared an experience over the past couple of weeks. But Allison, I'll give you the spotlight. Anything in addition to Skinamarink that you want to clue us into? Anything horror related you've been watching lately that you'd like to recommend?
What? I have been rewatching some of my favorite horror movies. So really nothing groundbreaking and new, but I've circled back. So my daughter was here for Christmas break and we watched all the Jordan Peele movies, all of them. So including Candyman. What a great movie, by the way.
Really? I feel like we could do a whole episode on that.
Did the four of us go and see that in the theater together? I feel like we did.
No,
we didn't.
Not Candyman. We saw Pet Sematary, didn't we?
We saw Pet Sematary. Okay, yeah. I saw Candyman the weekend that it opened in the theater, and I love that movie, and I stand by that. I absolutely love it. I just feel like, how did we deserve to be alive at the same time as Jordan Peele? He just is one of my favorite people that I get to share this lifetime with.
Born too late to explore the globe, born too soon to explore the stars, born just in time to explore the Jordan Peele filmography.
All right.
That's great.
And the Kyle Edward Bell filmography. We'll get to that.
I want to ask you quickly, though, since we're talking Jordan Peele, I don't think you and I have had a single word between each other about Nope. How do you stand on Nope?
I love it. I absolutely loved it. I love his Alien. I think it's so beautiful. The acting was incredible. I loved every single thing about it. I've seen it 5 or 6 times.
I have too, actually. I wouldn't say I love it, but I find it utterly fascinating. And that alien design is just next level.
Yeah.
So creative.
I thought that movie was a masterpiece. So my daughter's a big horror movie fan too. So she's gonna have to be, the next up and coming. Maybe she's the next generation of Iman hosts. But we watched a movie that was so fucking jacked up. It was called Dashcam. Have you guys seen this?
It's on Shudder.
Is it Shudder, Steven?
I don't know.
I've only heard of it. I haven't seen it, so I can't speak to its availability.
It was so crazy. And bloody and outlandish and kind of scary, but in a really murdery kind of way, real slashery. And I don't get as scared of things like aliens and ghosts because we haven't unfortunately really proven that those are a thing yet. But it's crazy people is what keeps me up at night. You know what I mean? People that are just going on murder sprees or intruders or whatever. And this movie was very much about crazy people. So that one was, I don't know, stirring, but I wouldn't say it was good.
Okay. I feel like I can just reason with them. If I run into a maniac, a home invader, the strangers, if you scream, they're gonna kill you for sure. But if you act nonplussed and you say, "Hey man, how you doing? Can I get you anything?" Hey, you don't want to do this.
There's a really funny story that I read a long time ago about a woman who had a home intruder, and she just was really nice to him and offered to make him pancakes. And then she just won him over. And then he was like, I'm sorry. Thank you for feeding me. I'm going to go. And I'm like, I think I could do that.
That's what we call restorative justice. Yeah.
Sometimes psychos are just hungry. That's true.
I know I turn into a psycho. Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, so that's been the latest. Nothing big and new, but this show gave me an opportunity to see 2 movies that I hadn't seen, and
you're welcome? Question mark. We'll
see.
Yeah, Chris, I wish you were joining us under better circumstances.
Yeah, me too.
Hey, Chris, do you have anything aside from Skinamarink, which I would like all 3 of us to talk about for a little bit?
No, I haven't watched anything horror related. I've been watching like actual movies, and I forgot how much I like films with a capital F. I watched The Card Counter and Portrait of a Lady on Fire and Elvis and in Tar, and you watch an actual movie and you're like, damn. This is so much better than every horror movie on Netflix.
Which is not to say that, some horror films can't be quote unquote actual movies, but it's often not our luck here on this show.
Yeah. How many movies do you guys have left? It's never ending, but
it doesn't
infinite.
end.
It doesn't end.
Well, It ends when Netflix ends, and that could be within the next calendar year, the way things are going.
Yeah, I think they walked that back though. I heard they walked that back.
It doesn't matter. The goodwill's been shot.
Yeah. We remember.
Yeah. We won't forget.
Well, so as I've said a couple of times now, all 3 of us have watched the viral sensation that is Skinamarink. I don't know if we even need to really set it up for you. I think everybody's heard of this. People that I work with who don't watch horror movies have been asking me about this because it's just been so in the mainstream news in a surprising way. It made a major return on its investment. It is now on Shudder. This is a movie about 2 young kids who are kind of trapped at home. Their dad has disappeared, and the house starts shifting around them. And I don't know if there's any further description left within my brain of what I saw. Honestly, that's your movie. What did you guys think of it?
What did you think of it, Allison? Special guest.
Ugh.
Oh, no.
Every time there was a new scene, I was like, fuck. Just end it. Listen, I love that it's trying to be a film with a capital F, and I feel like everyone is so creative and everyone's so arty. Come on. Like, I just couldn't get there. It was like, I love that it had a $15,000 budget. I loved that it left a lot to the imagination, but it just didn't do it for me at all. I think it was very much about like sound design, right? It was like what you hear and what you apply meaning to versus like what you see, because there was never any sort of like direct conflict happening. It was unclear if the Lego pieces were moving themselves until really late in the movie. We didn't see it. We saw 2 faces the whole movie, which was, I think that was a kind of a cool choice. It just, I don't know. It was like an hour too long for me.
I'm with you there. I mean, I watched one of this guy's short films. It was about 30 minutes. It was called Heck. And I could barely even make it through that. I do admire the aesthetic, and like it did touch upon some of my darker memories and leanings at times throughout, but my God, it was a slog at an hour and 40 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes longer than this short film. That was more nightmarish to me than anything that actually happened within the film itself.
You know, it did give me some confidence that if I wanted to make a film, I could. And if I marketed it the right way, people would think it was good.
And it's not hard to put a bunch of, grain and VHS filters over your images, especially when you're not shooting any action directly.
Right. Yep, that was my take.
So I had kind of an interesting experience. We saw the trailer for Skinamarink in the theater in front of Megan, and the trailer scared the fuck out of me. And I was like, I don't know if I want to watch that movie. And then I read some reactions to it, and a lot of people were like, this movie's so scary. I psyched myself out. I was afraid to watch this movie for weeks. I was dreading watching this movie, and I was like, I would walk around my house at night, and I would get like legitimately scared thinking about things that might be in Skinamarink.
Just from watching the trailer?
Just from watching the trailer. And
they
like
should have
kind
just left it there.
They should have. And like my imagination was running wild with like, how is this movie going to make me feel? What's in this movie? What's the secret? Oh my God. And I'm always going to treasure that experience I had for a couple weeks with this movie. And of course the movie can't live up to it, you know, but it is a movie where like, I think you get out of it what you put into it. Like it really just leaves it up to your imagination to decide how scared you want to get. And that works for some people and it doesn't work for other people. I found myself agreeing with every bad review I've read of that movie and also every good review I've read of that movie. So I don't know. I'm really split down the middle. I think I like it more than I didn't just because of how unique it was and kind of the strange experiment it was, but I can't really see myself going back to it. Or maybe I'll go back to it once, but you know, I certainly would encourage horror people to check it out, but just, you know, you really have to the journey is in your mind. Mm-hmm. So go into it with the right, approach.
Yeah. The audience member, have to do all the work. And that even includes set and setting as well, you know, making sure that you're in the right space. Like I would recommend, as many others before me have, like watch it on your laptop or on a big TV alone late at night when you're in that liminal space where you're kind of half awake and a movie can persuade you that it's a waking dream. And I think at times there were moments, I would say every 15 or so minutes throughout this movie, something genuinely unsettling was said or did happen, and it kind of pulled me back into the experience. It's a mixed bag. And I'm someone who loves experimental film, like everything from Kenneth Anger to Maya Deren. I like getting in that mindset and having to let my brain kind of fill in the gaps and work overtime. The great thing about those filmmakers' works, though, is that they're generally under 20 minutes.
Yeah. I think the length, though, I don't have as much of a problem with the length as a lot of people do. I think it could have been 90 minutes, not 100, but I'm not sure I would want it to be 20 minutes. I don't think it would be the same.
I was just really bored. It was a really boring movie for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just didn't do it for me. I think I realized watching that movie, I need some action. You know, like in proper horror movie fan wisdom here, the one scene where there was like blood on the ceiling, I was like, ooh. And then it disappeared and I was like, oh.
Did you watch it alone?
I did not watch it alone.
Okay.
But I watched it in the dark and I had a really open mind. And, you know, I'm definitely the only one of the three of us who hadn't heard of this movie before. So Steven texted me and asked me to watch it if I could, and I didn't get around to watching it until last night. I had read nothing about it. I read the description, and then I just turned it on. So I feel like I was really open-minded. But I was very, very bored. I think I need a little more action. That's okay.
That's fine. You know what you like.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of open minds, shall we move on to this week's movie, The Open House?
I guess
we have to. It's our assignment. We did the homework. You know, we might as well get credit for it.
So, Steven, why did you pick this movie?
I picked this movie
because this will affect your sentencing. Would you like to make a sentencing statement?
Don't make it personal. This is what happens when you watch every horror movie on Netflix, Chris, as you should well know. 2 weeks ago when it was time, or however long ago it was, when it was time to pick a movie, I looked at the selection on Netflix, and there were fewer horror movies. I don't know what it looks like today, but there were fewer horror movies than I'd seen in that queue in a very, very long time. Many of them we've already seen. Some of them I don't think really qualify as horror movies, a challenge we've run up against before. It was like the only thing that seemed even remotely appropriate to choose. Was I happy about that? No, I've heard this movie is terrible. I was hoping maybe it would lean into a so bad it's good kind of experience, and we'll get into whether or not that was the case for any of us. But yeah, it was pure desperation is the short answer to why I chose this film.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Well, you forgive me? Are my sins absolved?
I don't know. Let me set it up a little bit here. The Open House, it's a 2018 film starring Dylan Minette of 13 Reasons Why fame, which we talked about at the end of the last episode. Came out right in the peak of of 13 Reasons Why's popularity. So really kind of cashing in on that. Very small cast. It's about Dylan Minette is a teenager and his dad is killed in a sort of a random accident, and he and his mother don't have a lot of money, and they need to move, and basically they move into the mom's sister's
she's got a house on the market.
Yeah, I'm just trying to explain the relationship. It's Dylan's aunt, Dylan Minette. His name is Logan, but 13 Reasons Why Cole, we'll call him. It's Cole's aunt, his mom's sister, and she has got this big vacant house in like the Pacific Northwest or something, or Northern California. And so they're like, all right, we're just going to move in there and get back on our feet for a bit. And no sooner do they arrive, things are kind of weird off the bat, but the house is up for sale, and so they have to like leave the house on a couple occasions for an open house for strangers to come into the house. And I guess the premise of the movie is like, isn't that weird that you have to let strangers into your house when you sell your house?
You know, let me read to you a direct quote from the film, because this movie is so fucking dumb and has so little faith in its, I'm just going to come right out and say it out the gate, has so little faith in its audience that it spells out any hint of subtext that might exist in here.
I know what line you're talking about. The line where Cole, like, he's like, have you noticed that this is the premise of the movie?
Yeah, oh shit, I can't find it. I had it pulled up. But yeah, he basically comes out pretty long into the film, a good amount into the film, and says to his mom, like, wow, isn't it weird? The concept of an open house, giving people a key to your house, and you leave, and they go in, and they can do whatever they want, and who's to stop them from making a copy of the key and coming back and tormenting you? While this has been happening to them, it is obvious to anyone watching, as it should be to them, that this is happening. Absurd.
It's like you're watching Jaws and Roy Scheider is like, isn't it weird that you go swimming and you can't see what's under the water and something down there could bite you? Isn't that kind of existentially terrifying that we've conquered the land but not the ocean?
Yep, that was the log line that got me interested in seeing the film. You don't have to spill it back to me.
Yeah, I feel, and I'm glad you reminded me that this is the second real estate movie that we'll have talked about, and I'll bring the token realtor wisdom with me. But, there were a few times in that movie that I was like, ooh, I get to think about a job that I've had before and like how it relates. And it's a good point, like open houses can be creepy when you look at it through that lens, because you are opening your house up. People could hide. The odds of that happening are so small. And then you're not giving a copy of the key to just anybody. It's going to your realtor. It's put in a lockbox. They were like, we'll leave it under the mat. I'm like, no one does that. But I think, that setup alone has potential, right? Like there's what's that movie? There's a stranger in your house. Remember that old movie from the 80s or 90s?
Oh, When a Stranger Calls?
When a Stranger Calls, and he's like painted onto the wall. That scene terrified me when I was a teenager. There's a cool, you could do a lot with that concept of having an open house and somebody staying behind and, terrorizing you throughout the night or through whatever. But it just was executed so poorly.
Mm-hmm. There's an episode of Millennium, the TV series I sometimes talk about, that was sort of like an X-Files spinoff, but not really. The show was Millennium, and there was an episode called Wide Open that was about a serial killer who would go to open houses and hide in the closet and then like torture and kill the family when they got home. And it scared the shit out of me. This was on TV in like 1996, 1997, something like that. And I just remember there's this one scene where, like, because he would like take video of the murders or something, and there's a scene where Lance Henriksen's character, who's the lead in Millennium, is watching the TV, and all you see is the back of the TV, and you just hear screaming, and you see Lance Henriksen's disturbed face, and like Skinamarink, I imagine the worst shit possible. And I haven't seen that in 15 years, but it stays with me. So yeah, there is good. You can do something with this concept,
but they didn't.
They didn't do anything at all, frankly.
They did a lot of red herrings, like a lot of them.
I almost called it Red Herring, the movie, when I was first introducing it. I mean, that really is the bulk of it, is wondering who the killer is. And there's so many I mean, if you even care at that point, because there's barely a three-dimensional character to hang your hat on in this thing.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of opportunity there and it was missed. And you know, like, I think going back to all the red herrings, which every review that I read was just basically like, how dumb do you think the audience is? Like, again, it felt like really lazy filmmaking. It felt like really, really lazy writing that, I don't know, I think if it just was in different hands, it could have been really good. You know, even the acting was okay, you know?
Yeah.
It was just the writing was total trash.
Listen, I gotta tip my hand here. This is the worst horror movie I have seen in my life. That's what I say. You can feel free to disagree, but I mean, I've watched a lot of bad horror movies. All of them had something in them that interested me. This movie is the most uninteresting movie I've ever seen in my life. I always complain about the scenes where it's like, oh, someone's going to walk through a dark room real slow, and there's going to be like, you know, he reaches out and touches the doorknob, and, you know, he has the flashlight. That's half of this movie at least, and then the other half is just like people walking around having dialogue scenes that have no purpose, no point. And it starts off with this because it starts off with Cole and his dad going to the convenience store, and the dialogue in that scene, maybe we should play a clip of it, because it's like, hey, you all right? Yeah, I'm gonna go in the store, you want to come? Nah. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Oh, and then the red herring started immediately. The mom was like, don't forget to get milk. And then Dylan, Minette's character, was like, could you get me something? And then it's like, pan to the milk. He forgot the milk. You're like, that's going to be important. Oh, he forgot to get his son a snack. That's going to be important. And it fucking wasn't important at all.
He says, hey, could you get me something? 5 seconds after he says he doesn't want anything. And then he doesn't say what he wants. He just says, get me something.
And here's another thing, like the character development for the dad, there just wasn't enough. There was one scene with him, and then we saw him for 10 seconds as this endearing, like, included father that was throwing the ball or timing his son's race, whatever.
Yeah.
And then having a heated argument in the kitchen with the mom about something that you thought that's going to come back, that's going to be important, and it wasn't.
Well, they are arguing about, I will say they are arguing about their finances.
Yeah.
You see all the past due bills laid out on the table. So like it did set that up like that, you know, so that it makes sense that when the dad dies, they are even more fucked than they were before, and they have to go into this desperate situation of staying in the open house.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. The dad is in the movie for, I would probably 5 minutes total.
5 minutes. Yeah. And even in the scene in the kitchen, I realize that it sets up their like financial distress to come later, but they're talking about someone specifically where she's like, you better let him know this is the last time. And in my head, I was like, okay, this character is going to come back. So for a while there, I was like, okay, whoever they're having money problems with is going to end up being the killer. And he wasn't. Spoiler alert.
Well, I don't know who the killer was, but we'll get into that.
Well, there's a killer in the open house, but then there's also, you know, dad gets like hit by a car, and we don't know anything about that, which, I mean, that's fine, but it's like another thing that's sort of like seems like it's left hanging, that it might be important later because we learned so little about the circumstances of the death or who was behind the car.
It could have been a murder for all we know.
It could have been a murder.
It could have been, he could have paid to have someone take a hit out on himself so he didn't have to deal with the financial situation anymore.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Guys. Would have been a more interesting movie, though.
Much like Skinamarink, this leaves you to write your own story around the very nebulous images and storylines it presents.
I have to tell you, I read a really, really, really funny review on this movie, and it was a Forbes review, and here's the headline really quickly. Open house is what happens when Netflix gives up any semblance of quality control.
Yeah.
You have to wonder if anyone in the film or even anyone at Netflix like even read the script for this.
So I had a theory, and I was a lot more cynical about this movie after I saw it, and then I read an interview with the writers, directors, and mellowed out a little bit. But when I watched this movie, I was like, this is Netflix. This is just the most cynical movie as content I've ever seen in my life. They said, we have Dylan Minette's name signed in our black book from 13 Reasons Why. he has to like do some other project with us. Let's find the like cheapest horror script that nobody wants and the cheapest, and let's just like make a horror movie with Dylan Minette and we'll put it up as a Netflix original movie. That's not what happened. What happened is the writers directors somehow had an in with Dylan Minette and were trying to start their careers, and so they said, let's show the script to Dylan Minette, and for some reason he said, this looks like a great script, and did the movie. And then once they had him attached, they went to Netflix and said, hey, remember that kid who's in 13 Reasons Why, who's like driving all your viewership right now? We have him hostage by our movie. And they did. So I kind of respect it as these two people clawing their way into the industry, I guess.
Come on.
That is, I feel equally cynical about that as the theory that you had about how this came about. I mean, was it the writer or the director that said they don't even like horror movies? Well, they know that they sell.
They're both writer and director.
Okay.
And one of them doesn't like horror movies, and the other one says he does like horror movies, but the way he talked about them makes it sound like this was a cynical, horror movies are big now, right? That's how you get return on your investment. That's how you break in. I'm going to make a horror movie. And you know what? That's something a lot of people do. Like, we raised that same complaint about Like, we thought that...
I thought about that a lot during this.
Yeah, like just people who don't have any respect for the horror genre saying, well, how hard is it to make a horror movie? You just have them walk around in the dark for an hour.
Show a spooky ghost face or something somewhere in there and suddenly it's horror.
Yeah, it was yet another example of I could make a movie and it might do well. Both these movies really boosted my confidence. Really. So if nothing else, I feel like a lot better about my gifts, potential gifts. Should I act on them? Which I won't.
You should. Let's resolve to at least write a movie in 2023. Allison.
Just at least, at least write a movie.
I'm down. Between the three of us, I think we could make something, the very least as good as this.
No, we each are writing our own project, but we're encouraging each other.
Okay.
I mean, I like Steven's idea. I don't want to do it alone.
I'll collab with you.
All right, we got this.
Okay, great.
Steven X. Allison.
Yep. 2023 collection. So here's a segment of this review. I'm actually somewhat angry at Netflix for wasting my time with this trash and pretending like this movie was anything else besides trash. This guy didn't hold back. And that's how I felt too. It was like, do better. Do better.
I think this movie also fooled a lot of people because... So I'm thinking back to, this is 2018. By that point, Netflix had put out some pretty damn good original horror content. We had 1922, the Stephen King adaptation. We had, Flanagan's early films. Gerald's Game had come out by then. I think The Ritual, maybe, which I quite liked. They were really kind of establishing themselves very briefly over a couple of years as like the place to go for original horror content that you can stream at home day and date. And this was marketed, I think, just as much. There was as much of a push behind this movie. I distinctly remember it coming out and then immediately the backlash because it just didn't even remotely live up to the standards that Netflix had set for themselves.
The Netflix logo used to be a mark of quality, I thought. Maybe I was naive. Maybe it never was. But whenever a Netflix original got my attention, I was like, I know that's going to be up to a certain standard. It's like the new HBO. And now I see the Netflix original, and I would rather watch a Shudder original. That's saying something.
Even as dicey as those can be, yeah.
I know.
They put out a movie every fucking week, it seems like.
Yeah.
I still think Netflix has a standard that I appreciate. I think that that's why this felt really disappointing. And I think that this felt like movies like this give horror movies a bad name, Like people that are like, I'm not really into horror, but it's got this star in it. And he's really topical right now and whatever. I'm going to watch this movie and then be like, see, horror movies are stupid. It's like, no, this horror movie was stupid. I don't know. I'm forever fighting, advocating for the horror genre, but man, there's just a lot of disappointing shit out there.
I want to give some kudos, though. I want to be a little bit positive about Piercy Dalton, who plays Naomi, the mother. Because I thought that she's like a nobody actress. She has like 3 credits in her life or something, and I thought she did a very good job in this movie. There's only a couple scenes where they really act, but they're fine. And I'm glad that she got that for her reel, like her doing a good performance opposite Dylan Minette that maybe she can do something else with. But she was very good. Gratuitous ass shot, I will say.
I wrote that down. I'm like, what is going on? Because this is, the camera's inside the bathroom, but this is ostensibly from the point of view of Cole, as you want to call him. It's like we're supposed to be anxious about him seeing his mom naked, and he like accidentally comes into the bath. And I'm like, why introduce this odd kind of psychosexual concept into this film that also is never really played out?
Never played out. There was some side boob too. There were 2 shower scenes.
Yeah, there were a lot of shower scenes, and I kind of felt bad for this woman. It kind of felt exploitative, and I mean, listen, we've seen gratuitous ass shots in films, and male gaze. What's that one? The one where they went to the broken down jail. Bleed.
Oh, Batide, yeah.
Bleed. There was a very gratuitous ass shot in that, but at least it was like very much male gaze, like check out this ass, the way they shot it. Here she's just standing there like Dennis Franz and NYPD Blue. Like, it's just out. And I'm like, why did this have to be out in this moment? What was the intention?
It was another
any attention.
Because these people don't know anything about horror movies, and they think, okay, well, they're just checking boxes. They're like, well, we gotta have a little TNA in here, right? That's what people come for.
Yep. I thought she was a great actress too, and Dylan Minette did great too. That's what I'm saying. That the acting was there.
Okay, if we're talking about the performances, though, I do want to highlight one scene that to me felt like a direct ripoff of Hereditary. The scene where they're at each other's throats about how like he wishes she had died instead. That was also like, again, felt like checking a box. Oh, Hereditary did that. We got to have a conflict between the mother and son, and they have to say some really fucking dark shit to each other, and then they just pretend that it never happened afterwards.
Yeah.
And there's no subtext, like
no,
he's like, I wish you died instead. Like that's interesting, but maybe you don't have to say it. Maybe you can show it.
Yeah, and she really hadn't done anything to like deserve that. Like,
no,
like,
she was like, hey,
being a good mom. She's doing her best. You're 18. It's not like you're 14. You know what I mean?
Right. All right. All she's doing is saying, hey, we're going to go to this beautiful countryside for a few months, and I'm going to be suspicious of you because the water keeps going out in the shower.
Yeah. There's a lot of gaslighting happening there.
a
lot of gaslighting. And, it was sort of refreshing that the male character was getting gaslit for once, because it's always formulaically that the female character, typically the wife, the husband's like, you're crazy, none of that's happening, and then it's too late by the time he realizes and everyone dies or whatever, but...
You're making a pun, though, about the water heater, right?
Oh, shit, I wasn't.
I thought you knew exactly what you were doing.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, that was good.
You're on fire tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, all these scenes where she has to go down and try to relight the water heater with the match in the basement. Yeah. Just, oh my God. Listen.
And it's like, that house was beautiful. How old was that, first of all?
I texted Chris about that moment specifically. I'm like, it's 2018 in this gorgeous modern home, and they're literally light. It stressed me out. I was waiting for like a ball of flame to shoot out and burn his eyebrows off or something. Yeah.
What kind of
fucking overhead lights fixed? That's a simple. I'm like, change the light bulb.
Especially if this house is on the market, presumably people are going to check out the water
basement.
heater.
Yeah.
What kind of offer would you put in on this house, Allison? How much is too much for this house?
I was trying to do just quick real estate math, and the location being unclear, I was like, is that in like Lake Tahoe? Where is that? It's clearly in the mountains. That's like a $5 million house.
$5 million?
But depending on the location. But if that's in Northern California and any sort of mountain of note, yeah.
But there's no one, it's not like, it seems like no one goes to that town, so it can't be Lake Tahoe, because everyone at the corner store is like, we haven't seen a fresh face in years.
Yeah, that's true. $3 million?
Yeah, oh my God. The cashier at the store, I want to talk about him. He was so horny. He had a line where he said something like like about how he's like, yeah, everybody looks, rough and tumble down here, and I'm talking about the women, and he's like so excited for this like fresh prospect. Here's my question, because he seems to be interested in buying the house at one point. Did he own that store, or was he just a cashier? Because I think even if he owned the store, there's no way he would be considering a purchase on this thing.
I was like, how is your retail budget going to afford this house?
It's got like 8 bedrooms, and he's a single man.
Yeah.
But then again, that's just setting up another red herring, I guess. Maybe we're supposed to question his motives, which turns out were pure.
Right. They were pure. The same with the kooky neighbor. Like, I just really wanted it to be somebody,
The kooky neighbor was totally the Ann Dowd character from Hereditary, too.
Completely.
It should have just been Ann Dowd. And I think this is like the 3rd time she's come up on the show in the last 3 months.
It's absurd. It's absurd that this movie, and yeah, this isn't even spoil. I mean, there's very little you can spoil about this movie. Mm-hmm. We'll go to the spoiler room eventually. But like, it's absurd to me that like you have this house where like we see a ghost. Like, we see a face over the shoulder when they're lighting the water heater, and then it's gone a split second later, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's a fucking ghost. And the next door neighbor is like, oh, my husband's dead. Oh, no, my husband's alive. Oh, my husband's actually dead. And that's not what's going. It has no relationship to what's going on. And never explained.
The townspeople, or the other people who interact with Dylan and Naomi, they also have like differing thoughts about what is happening with the husband too, right? Like, I feel like one of them says, oh yeah, he's dead, she just has Alzheimer's, and another one is like, is that a spoiler? I guess it's a spoiler.
No, that's not a spoiler.
It's not a spoiler.
Don't watch this movie, guys.
But it's intentionally misleading for no reason, and like that is where I started to get real pissed off, because the movie is just dragging out its already short runtime with obnoxious misinformation and red herrings that don't make any sense and don't end up leading up to anything important.
Yeah. And I think that there were so many moments where this movie could have redeemed itself had any of the red herrings played out. Maybe one of the less obvious ones. There was a moment where I thought the neighbor was a ghost. I'm like, is there a paranormal element happening here? Has anyone else seen her besides them? And then I'm like, no one else has seen her, so maybe she's not alive. It just, none of it panned out, and there were so many opportunities. It's like, even if they wrote 75% of the movie and then handed the script to someone and said, finish this, it would have been better.
Or if she has Alzheimer's, make her a little bit dangerous. She just randomly shows up in the middle of the night with a knife and has no idea what she's doing or something.
She did have that one moment.
She literally did that, didn't she?
Did she? I don't think she had a weapon.
Didn't she show up at the house at night?
She didn't have a weapon. She was like ominous, but not dangerous. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Ominous
just
and
sort of
dangerous.
Like she wasn't really a threat, but it was, maybe that's the difference between ominous and dangerous. She didn't seem like actively like she was threatening, but her behavior was alarming and confusing.
Yeah.
That's not scary.
I'm just imagining an alternate universe where Michael Jackson made an album called Ominous.
Would listen.
Yeah, but and it just does this horror movie thing where there's weird stuff happening from time to time, but like the characters aren't really doing anything when they're not responding to being haunted. They're moping around, they're going into town, they're having breakfast, but like there's no reason to care about what they're doing. It's like, you might as well just kill them, because who are these people? They're just like losing shit and waiting for the next thing to happen in the basement.
They're just so not interesting. Like, Dylan's entire personality is that he can run and he wears contacts sometimes, and he's a little mopey.
Chekhov's contacts.
That's it.
Oh, Chekhov's contacts.
Have either of you? Okay, so I've worn contacts in the past. Chris,
I've worn contacts.
You have,
not regularly, but
Allison,
I've worn them.
I wear them every day. I'm basically blind. Yeah, my eyesight is terrible, so I could relate to that aspect of the film. That was very stirring for me.
I think for a lot of people, it might be. it wasn't for me, but it did make me think that, early on in the movie when I had no idea how much of a train wreck this was going to be, I was like, well, that's interesting that's like the second shot of the movie is him pulling the contacts out of his eyes, which I distinctly remember. I still have nightmares regularly. I haven't worn contacts in over 10 years. I have nightmares where it's like day 45 of like a 30-day pair of contacts, and I haven't taken them out at all, not even to sleep, and I don't have a backup pair, and I can't find my glasses, and my eyes are just like crusting over to the point that I can barely open them.
Oh my
God.
God.
You're supposed to wear contacts for 30 days straight.
No, but I'm saying in the nightmare.
Oh, okay, got it.
And they do make monthlies that you take out every night, but in the nightmare that I still have after a decade, contacts are still kind of scary to me. So I thought, interesting. I wonder what this movie's going to do with that. I wonder if it will appeal to my innate fear. Nope.
We'll tell you what they did.
It did to me.
We'll tell you in the spoiler room how that pays off, and it is maybe the dumbest thing I've ever seen on screen.
I mean, I'll give them credit for at least for once set up and payoff. They did it.
Sure.
Technically,
Sure.
they did it.
They did it. They checked the box. It was interesting because you see the contacts so much, but he also has a normal pair of glasses that he wears about half the time. Mm-hmm. And there is the part where like his glasses go missing, and I'm like, oh, is he going to be blind like for the whole movie now? Mm-hmm. But that had no consequence. I guess that was to get him to wear his contacts again so that they could pay that off at the end.
Which is so convoluted. he only wears contacts when it's convenient for the plot.
Yeah.
Like, just have him wear fucking glasses. Because then what happens to him would make a lot more sense at the end. And not be stupid.
Yes, because if he loses his glasses, he doesn't have a backup. If he loses his glasses, he can just put his contacts. It's so fucking dumb.
Oh my God.
I do like, so that was one part of the movie that I was like, ooh, hard relate. I've always joked that if like someone comes in my house to like burgle me and they just take my glasses away, I would be like, take whatever you want. I am completely defenseless. Like I can hardly get around in my house without contacts.
If I take my glasses out, you could be Naomi from this movie, Allison, right now.
Yeah.
You could be
I have
Naomi.
no idea.
You look
You're
like a
foot
fucking
away.
stranger without your glasses.
So I get that. And I think it was kind of cool to highlight his vulnerability. And I think those of us with bad eyesight feel like, we've lost one of our senses, not all the way, obviously, but it puts us in a really vulnerable position. It's like one of my biggest fears is I'm on the run from somebody or something and I can't see because I don't have my contacts or my glasses. So that to me was like a real fear. Maybe one of the only things they did well in terms of like evoking like a relatable feeling from the viewer. But yeah, we'll talk more about that when we review.
When I say this movie feels like it was written by an AI, this is what I'm talking about, because it's like, oh, a character needs a weakness or a vulnerability, and they're like, well, he wears contacts. It's like, and that weakness or vulnerability, should come into play in the final act of the movie. And it's like, oh, well, we're gonna have this thing happen.
Yeah.
Any character's weaknesses or vulnerabilities in this they're not tied to their inner character in any way, which I find kind of interesting. It really does feel like
they don't have character.
Yeah, they don't have character.
That's what I'm saying. They would if they had weaknesses or vulnerabilities that were like a little more interesting and not just entirely superficial.
I've read enough shitty stuff produced by these damn AI programs lately because everyone thinks they're fucking cool and profound, and they're not. They're all horrible. And I feel like I just recognize the style. I don't know. I want proof that fucking Suzanne Coote and Matt Angel exist.
We're calling them out. Oh my God.
That's the
Reveal
right
yourselves. Reveal yourselves.
I need to know that they exist. And listen, again, like the worst movie I've ever seen, I can only have so much malice towards an individual creator or something. Like, good for them. They made a movie. We're here talking about, oh, this makes us feel like we could make a movie. But like, they got it done. I'll give them some credit. But they said in an interview, they've been getting death threats over this movie.
Oh my
I believe it.
Like death threats because people feel like their time was wasted?
Yeah, or they didn't like the ending, or etc.
Well,
maybe it was just we could talk about it in the spoiler room why they might be getting death threats. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's I don't wish them dead. I don't wish any harm on them.
No.
But please don't do this again.
I've seen worse horror movies, for sure. This just felt very formulaic. It felt very lazy. I too could see if it was written by AI. I had that thought at the end. I was like, what wrote this?
What? Not who, what?
Yeah, what wrote this?
I watch a lot of they're typically put out by Vinegar Syndrome, but I watch a lot of like kind of lost straight to video, like regional horror movies that have like recently been restored and put on Blu-ray. And like each one of those at least has like a little bit of charm to it in the grit. You know, there's a little something. There's like a you know, an actor who has two scenes who's like from another, you know, basically acting like they're from another planet, a completely different movie from this. There's some interest to keep you going. This had absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. Completely charmless.
So would you view it, cue it, or screw it,
hard,
Steven?
Screw it.
Screw it hard, yeah.
I would also screw it. And that's the thing. It's not so bad it's good. Like people are going to hear this review and think, "Oh, I need to see this train wreck." No, it's formless. It's featureless. Yeah. It's not
a waste of time.
You can't laugh at it. It's just a waste of time. And that's the reason I say it's the worst I've ever seen, because every other horrible movie I've seen has something that turns the dial where I'm like, this is laughably bad, or like another horrible movie, which I know has its fans and they'll probably send me death threats. Mother's Day. I hate Mother's Day.
Oh, I like
I haven't
Mother's
seen
Day.
that.
You like Mother's Day, but it has the one scene where like they're dangling out the window, and I'm like, that's a good scene. I'll give them that. I can hook onto that.
Would you guys view it, cue it, or screw it to Skinamarink?
Oh, screw it.
Yeah, same.
View it. I'd give it a view it.
View it.
Yeah. I mean, not to, I wouldn't say view it. I wouldn't say everybody should view it, but I think at least for the sake of understanding the cultural phenomenon, people should watch it.
Huh.
Interesting. Well, gosh, I feel like we wind up in a lot of spoiler basements lately. Do we have any better ideas for a setting?
A spoiler shower, maybe.
Spoiler shower? There are some kind of like weird catacombs down there too. Maybe spoiler catacombs? I don't know. We're going somewhere in this house.
But before we go down into that spoiler shower in the catacombs, we would like to encourage you to check us out online. We are at Amoncast, EHMON Cast, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We have a website, everyhorrormovieonnetflix.com. You can go there. You can send us an email. You can see a list of some of the movies we've reviewed so far. And you can also join us on Discord. We have a very lively Discord community. We like talking to fans on there. Steven has a book club on there. Lots of good bonus content to be found on our Discord. The link to that is in the show notes.
All right. Well, down to the spoiler shower water heater situation. We'll see you in a minute. And we're back. We're in the spoiler shower, ready to spoil everything. Your butts are looking good, guys, I have to say.
I'm washing every crevice.
Thank you. I've been working out.
So the thing about this movie is we've got all these red herrings that we've, discussed in typical haphazard fashion as we've tried to puzzle this whole thing together. And it turns out they're just that. They're red herrings, and there are a shitload of them. In the end, there is a killer. We have no idea who or what he is. I even considered at one point that he might be the ghost of the father.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that too. It's just a guy, and you know what? I would call it, maybe he's an audience surrogate. Like, we all just want a guy to show up and end the movie, and then he does.
Did you guys think it was the HVAC guy? Because I did for a while.
No.
You're definitely meant to think that he's a possibility.
Yeah, because of the boots and the pants or whatever. He's a bigger guy.
See, here's the thing. Listen, I'm not an optimist, but I think I generally have more faith in human beings than a lot of people do, and more so than this movie does. Like, no, I'm not worried about someone hiding under my bed and murdering me if I have an open house. Like, these people, for the most part, people do the right thing. Mm-hmm. You know? The HVAC guy isn't going to murder you.
Yeah, but no one really had any motive. There was the chances of him murdering them were as good as anyone else.
I mean, in this movie, but like I'm thinking specifically of like when Cole does his soliloquy and he's like, "Isn't it weird that when you sell a house, you have to talk to a real estate agent?" I feel like these writers, directors are the people who like, you know, they order pizza on the app. Okay, they don't want to talk on the phone. They're afraid. They're afraid of people. You know, I'm like, no, that's not that scary to me that you have a real estate agent or that you show someone your house. Like, what are they going to do?
I don't know. You know, I'm going to weigh in with the real estate perspective again. Being a realtor from the realtor perspective, especially being a female realtor, can be extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's not something you really think about or know about or hear about until you do. And then you're like, holy shit, this is a real thing, you know, where I know a lot of realtors that carry a weapon with them when they go to show houses because you just don't know. And there's a lot of documented cases of shit going really, really bad with just a crazy person.
I feel like mostly people just want to show up for the free hors d'oeuvres, though, right? That's
sure, like a normal,
of the time,
quote unquote, normal person. But again, I had a lot of faith in the storyline that there was something to work with here. And then another perspective is like when you close down an open house, you don't look under the beds and shit. So things could happen. Mm-hmm. But you
will now.
Maybe.
Yeah, this movie was just so
cautionary tale.
Yeah.
You know what it needed?
So palpable.
It needed something that we've seen with some regularity on Amon, which is an opening text crawl. Like every year, 5,000 real estate agents die because they didn't check under the bed before they closed down the house.
Mm-hmm. Like this was really just a film put out by like the National Association of Realtors that you have to watch to get your continuing ed credits. So they can like check the liability box and be like, okay, we've done our part.
This is something I thought you might have frustrated you, Allison. When they come to the open house, the agent is like, all right, there's a paper there where you can like leave your number if you have any questions. Like, that's not how you do it, right?
That part didn't really bother me that much. You know, like every realtor has their own style, you know, take a business card, leave your information. No, that didn't bother me, Chris.
Well, I thought you want everyone to sign in just as a matter of course.
Sure.
That's what I thought too. Yeah. You don't make it optional.
Right.
These are all potential
Oh, no, it's
leads.
fully optional. It's fully optional.
But everyone who comes in is a potential lead. That's the way I would. I mean, I'm not licensed. Yeah. I've never taken that class, but I would think, you know what? You might be here for the hors d'oeuvres, but I could convince you.
No, that's not common practice. Believe it or not common practice. Nope.
Interesting.
Wow.
You don't want to harangue people because you don't want to compete with other realtors, right? So you're like not trying to earn that person's business. You're potentially trying to sell them a house, but you don't want to step on toes. That's like an unspoken understanding. So no, that part didn't bother me as much as everything else about the movie.
So there's a whole code.
There's a code. Yeah, for sure. It's etiquette, you know?
That's why when they're like, are you working with a realtor? You say, yes. And they're like, what's her name? And I'm like, she lives in another state. She doesn't go to this school.
So should we talk about some of the red herrings? Because there were a couple that really fucking ground my gears.
Yeah, what ground your gears, Allison?
What was the point of the broken step in the basement? Because that really could have been something.
Did no one ever wind up tripping on it?
Never. Never.
I wasn't even paying that close attention to it. That's hilarious.
That's
why you put a broken step in the basement, so that during the final chase, you know, he can run, but he forgot about the broken step.
Okay,
one
more.
Got stuck in it? That's crazy.
Nobody got stuck. And it was like the step was broken. He's shown his flashlight down it. It was clearly like, what's under the stairs? That's something. And then the mom, when she goes to relight the pilot, she just hops over it. He hops over it. And then the murderer, whoever it might be, it's not like booby trapped. There's no conclusion there. There's no like firework there. Another thing for me was like, I really thought something was going to be tied in with his running, right? Like his record. I was thinking he's going to be in a final situation where he has to outrun somebody and he's going to beat his record. Like, just give us that. Just give us that.
Oh, yeah. I assume
Now you're
the
thinking
same
like
thing.
James Cameron.
Well,
Now you're thinking like somebody who like
Thought
is
the
actually
movie
invested in writing their story.
did you guys not have that thought? Like the
Oh yeah, I
running
did.
times.
That's
were
like
really
I said
emphasized.
earlier. I was like, okay, something's gonna happen with the context. Something's gonna happen with the running. And
I
he's
just
gonna
thought
get
that was
away.
character, and I the running. I would rather have watched an hour and a half long movie with Cole just like trying out for the Olympics.
Just a totally different movie.
Yeah, just make it a sports movie.
Like the Rudy of horror movies.
Yeah, yeah. His dad is played by Adam Sandler, and he doesn't die.
So what are the other red herrings you guys picked up on that never came to fruition?
God,
I gotta look at my notes. I mean, I feel like I've mentioned
the truck that pulls up outside the house and puts on its high beams and honks at you at 3 a.m. Mm-hmm. Like,
Nothing.
is that the MO of the killer? Does the killer do that? It doesn't seem like the guy who hides in the house during the open house would also be the guy who parks his truck in front of your house and puts on the high beams and honks the horn. But what do
Right.
I know? I'm not a killer.
Yeah.
Or is that just a red herring?
And then the way that the killer leaves the knife for whomever finds the mom, but there's a knife there. It's like, okay, where are we going with that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess should we describe in like a
Yeah.
little more brief detail like what actually the killer finally like reveals himself sort of, and he's in bed with the mom. Mom wakes up in the middle of the night, doesn't notice there's someone in bed with her. This happened to a friend of mine actually, where someone broke into their
I don't want to hear that.
second floor apartment, and their partner. They were sleeping in bed with their partner. They woke up and thought, oh, my partner is a little closer to me than usual. It turns out somebody had broken in and got in bed in between them.
What?
She woke up screaming. The guy ran. It took her forever to wake her partner up because he's a deep sleeper. He got up, didn't believe that any of this had happened, thought it was
Classic.
yeah, of course, right? Well, they go all throughout the apartment. It was a fairly large apartment. I'd been there before. Looking for details in the middle of the night. They don't find any evidence that anybody's broken in until they're about to go back to bed, and they see a hoodie on the ground that doesn't belong to either of them. They did
Better
finally
movie.
catch the guy too. They did finally catch the
Better
guy.
movie.
Better movie. Yeah.
But I
Can
thought
we
of
buy
her,
their story?
thought of her doing that scene. So the killer tied.
I'm gonna cast fucking Hannah Brown. What's her name?
So the killer
Another-
ties up Naomi, breaks
What's her
all
name?
of her.
Hold
fucking
on.
fingers.
Hannah Baker. That's what I said. I'm gonna cast Hannah Baker for that movie.
Catherine.
She doesn't seem to be very busy, so
Catherine Langford.
Langford. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Stephen, as you were.
killer brutally breaks all the mom's fingers very quickly, kind of leaves her, and also leaves the knife there, right? And then
I remember him breaking the fingers slowly.
it seemed like it took like a minute for him to break all of her fingers, but I don't know. Maybe I was just maybe I bumped it up to 1.5.
Like, why is he doing this? Why is he doing this?
Why? Who is he? Why? He leaves the knife. Cole ends up inadvertently killing his mom with the knife. Oh, and the boyfriend got murdered out in the truck too.
Of course he did.
The token black guy
He
who
got
was
his
like,
throat slit.
I thought he was a ghost too. I'm like, he always wears the same thing.
Another red
You're
herring.
very observant.
But people have seen him in the store, so he can't be a ghost. He also can't afford this house. So like, what's his angle? He likes the mom.
Yeah.
And then he turns out to be nice. Another red herring.
Yeah.
And,
Dies
and what,
in their
What do you
car.
get for being nice? You get your throat slit in your car when you're just trying to.
The finger breaking just was like so weird to me. It's like the two writers / directors, one of them was like, well, it's a horror movie, we should put torture in it. And then the other one was like, I don't want torture. And they met in the middle.
Just some light
Do
torture.
some light torture.
Yeah, it's like, well, he just breaks her finger off.
Yeah.
But wait, I think when does the contact scene happen? I think before he kills his mom because he can't see.
Oh, and is that why?
Oh, is that
Can't
why?
miss that.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh
whatever.
my fucking god.
Yeah, the killer pulls his contacts out, and then he's blind because his glasses are gone at that point too, right? He's finally lost both his primary and his backup method of vision correction.
The killer gets the jump on Cole, and Cole's like, "Oh no, please don't kill me, don't kill me!" And the killer like gets on top of Cole, and with his large man hands reaches in and takes his contacts out one by one.
One by one. There's only two. It's funny.
But did you guys think he threw like gasoline on him? It was just water.
Oh yeah. Oh, he tries to give him hypothermia.
I thought it was gas at first, and I'm like,
I thought it was too.
we're going bones
But
and
it was
all on
just
this
water.
bitch.
And then he leaves him there. Like he didn't even finish the job.
We're making this sound like it's so bad it's good, but it's not
so
fun
bad
at the
it's
time.
bad.
Don't watch this movie. Do not watch this movie.
It's so bad, it's bad. Oh my god. So yeah, he takes his contacts out, throws water on him, which we think is gas, which would have been cooler. Cole makes his way back into the house. Mom is in the basement.
Yeah.
Cole can't see.
The mom tries to jump scare him, and he can't see, so he stabs her in the gut with a knife, and what probably wouldn't be a fatal wound, except it is. Cause
Exactly. I was like, that's not going to kill her, by the way.
So yeah, Cole kills his mom. He wished her dead, and then he made it happen.
And then
do anything you put your mind to.
And then he can't outrun the killer, so he ends up getting killed by the killer. And then we find out that this killer has an MO. He's the open house killer.
He's the open house killer.
Because we see him driving up to another open house in a country set, a rural setting, immediately afterward. I mean, I assume it's sometime later, but that's the next shot.
But this next shot, it like takes place in Texas, so you know it's not going to go the same. This isn't Soy Boy Cole and Single Mom in the Pacific Northwest. This is gun packing, trailer trash.
Oh, shit.
It's the fucking Sawyer family.
I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I couldn't think of the PC name for the Sawyer family.
So he can't outrun the killer, which is ridiculous because he's a runner.
But he can't run if he can't see, I guess. Is that a thing?
He can't run if he can't see. But let's not forget the scene where he takes refuge by this big fallen log, and then the kooky neighbor walks up inexplicably, who's like on one of her weird meandering walks because she's not all the way there. Well, I was like, okay, is she the killer? Is she going to save him? Is he going to look up and be like, holy shit, help me? But he doesn't know yet that she's not a threat. But none of the above happened. None of it.
Wait, what did end up happening to her? I don't remember now.
She just walked along on her merry way.
Yeah.
She just walked away like, oh, guess that was a missed opportunity.
Like Joe Bob at the end of Hogzilla.
I don't know.
Oh,
what that
yeah.
means,
He was a force ghost, right?
Yeah.
And then he gets murdered by like on an embankment. And then they're dead. Sad.
Good riddance, frankly.
And I guess that might be why they got the death threats. They probably had Dylan Minette Zoomer stands watching this, and then they saw Dylan Minette get murdered and said, "There's something wrong with the people who made this. We're issuing an edict
fatwa
against them." Fatwa.
I mean, the poster is his face. They sold this entire thing on him, so I'd believe it.
Yeah. So I talked about my 14-year-old daughter. You guys know her. But she's quickly becoming an avid horror movie lover. And I told her last night that I was reviewing this movie, and she goes, that movie sucked.
We should have had her on the show.
Someday. But I'm like,
can you bring her in
to
give us like a little 30-second capsule review?
Right now?
I mean, I'm half joking, but it would be kind of funny.
On the fly? I don't know. She blows me off a lot.
Let's get Ella on the phone. Ella, are you there?
My point is, like she's developing her palette for horror movies, but even she, who likes this actor Dylan Minette, she's of the 13 Reasons Why generation. even she, and I'm sounding like I'm discounting her genius, which I'm not, but just if a 14-year-old was like, that movie fucking sucked, it sucked.
What you're trying to say is if there's any demographic that this movie should appeal to, it's a 14-year-old Dylan Minette fan who doesn't have a ton of experience with horror.
Yep. Who's kind of easy to fool, naive.
Uh-huh.
Damn.
Doesn't really know what's expected of, good horror movies. Not good.
Not good. That's the story of the day.
Not good.
Yeah, wow. I have tears in my eyes, guys, from laughing so hard a few minutes ago. I almost want to bump it up to a Q.
Fuck that.
I'm kidding.
No, that's my worst fear. Honestly, my ethical quandary with this is I think our fans are going to watch this movie because we reviewed it, and I don't want to be responsible for that. We should probably just delete this episode and not release
This never happened.
This is too dangerous. It's like the incantation thing. It's reverse Buddha. We gotta wall it off.
It would be irresponsible
to
air it. I agree with you.
We've disclaimed a number of times, don't watch this movie.
They're not going to believe us because we're having fun. We're laughing. They want to laugh too.
Yeah. It's not funny. This episode,
not funny.
The episode of this podcast was so much more entertaining than the movie could ever deign to be.
That's why I'm laughing so hard, because it's like that slap happy where you're so exhausted with thinking about something that the more you talk about it, the less sense it makes and it becomes amusing. That's what's happening. This is like big sleepover, 1 a.m. energy right now. Yeah. But you're not going to have that 100%. If you watch the movie unless you are forced to record a podcast episode about it with your friends.
Right. Right. Well, what are you guys watching next?
Yeah, what does the wheel have prepared for us?
The wheel is picking this week, so we're going to pull out that big cyber wheel. We've got every horror movie on Netflix loaded into it, and it's going to pick a random one for us. All right, giving it a spin. And we are going to watch The Blue Whale.
Huh.
When the suicide rate among teenagers mysteriously rises, the police set up an investigation linking these incidents to a viral online challenge game. They find out they all watched The Open House.
Is Dylan Minette also in this film?
No, this is an Egyptian thriller.
Oh, exciting. Have we watched the movie from Egypt yet?
I think 122 was Egyptian, wasn't it? The hospital movie? Yeah, that was Egyptian as well.
Okay. Well, I'm still excited. It's a little something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Blue Whale.
Presumably it's made with pure intentions, unlike The Open House.
Well, listen, I'm not going to comment on their intentions. I'm just going to comment on what they did. They do have another movie. I think it's on Netflix. So I actually am perversely curious to watch it and just kind of get a better feel for who these people are as filmmakers and if they deserve my, compassion.
Well, that is an open question that I have. So they made their cynical cash grab. How did it fare? So let me know if you check that out. Because this kind of movie could get you just immediately blacklisted from Hollywood. It's that bad. Surprised they were allowed behind the camera again.
Yeah, there was a lot of grifting going on that doesn't feel fair to the rest of us aspiring filmmakers who do very little writing about horror.
All right, well, The Blue Whale. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Allison, thanks again so much for joining us. I hope to have you on again very soon for every horror movie on Netflix. I have been Steven.
I've been Chris, and I apologize I shouldn't have said trailer trash to describe the Texas gun-toting residents. The beautiful people who happen to live in inexpensive homes and have a lot of guns to kill a killer with.
Mm-hmm. There's beautiful people on all sides down there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for having me, you guys. It was fun. Can't wait to come back.
All right, night-night.